Years passed in the tents of Isaac. The once crying infants had grown into two men as different as fire and water. Esau, the firstborn, became a hunter of the wild. His arms were strong, his heart ruled by impulse. The forests and deserts were his kingdom, the thrill of the chase his joy. He returned each evening smelling of earth, sweat, and victory. Jacob, on the other hand, was quiet and calculating. He preferred the shade of the tents, watching, learning, listening. While his brother hunted beasts, Jacob hunted moments, opportunities. Their father, Isaac, loved Esau for his wild spirit, the son who brought him the taste of game. But Rebekah, their mother, saw something in Jacob that others did not, a whisper of destiny, a divine fire that flickered beneath his calm surface. One fateful day, Esau returned from the fields, exhausted, his hunger gnawing like a beast inside him. He found Jacob stirring a pot of crimson stew, its scent dancing through the camp. "Give me some of that red stew," Esau growled. "I'm starving to death." Jacob looked at him, his eyes glinting with a quiet cunning. "Sell me your birthright first," he said. Esau laughed, bitter and careless. "What good is a birthright if I die of hunger?" And with that careless trade, history shifted. Esau devoured the stew, and Jacob claimed the birthright, the spiritual inheritance of the firstborn. The fire crackled softly beside them as night fell. Esau wiped his mouth, unaware of what he had just lost. Jacob gazed into the flames, seeing not the stew, but the glimmer of a promise far greater than food, the hand of destiny beginning to turn in his favor. Time moved like sand through an hourglass. Isaac grew old. His eyes were dim, his hands trembled, his voice softened by the weight of years. He called for his eldest son, Esau. "Go, my son," Isaac said. "Hunt for me and prepare the meal I love. Then I will bless you before I die." Outside the tent, Rebekah's heart raced as she overheard those words. She knew what that blessing meant, the covenant of Abraham, the promise of nations, and she knew what God had said, "The older will serve the younger." She rushed to Jacob. "Listen carefully," she whispered. "Bring me 2 young goats. I will prepare them just as your father loves. Then you will go to him, and he will bless you, not Esau." Jacob hesitated, his brow furrowed. "But my brother is hairy, and I am smooth-skinned. What if father touches me? He'll think I'm mocking him and curse me." Rebekah's eyes blazed with resolve. "Let the curse fall on me, my son. Do as I say." Moments later, Jacob stood before her, his arms covered with goatskins, wearing Esau's clothes. The smell of the fields clung to him. His heart thundered like a war drum. He entered his father's tent. "My father," he said. Isaac's fading eyes flickered. "Who are you, my son?" Jacob's breath caught. "I am Esau, your firstborn. I've done as you asked. Sit up and eat so that you may bless me." Isaac ate the meal, his frail hands trembling. Then he reached out and touched Jacob's arms. "The voice is Jacob's," he murmured, "but the hands are Esau's." He leaned forward, smelling the scent of his son's clothes, the scent of the wild. And then Isaac spoke the blessing that would echo through eternity. "May God give you heaven, as dew and earth as richness. May nations serve you, and may your mother's sons bow before you." The words fell like thunder over Jacob's soul. The blessing was his. But even as the sacred moment filled the tent, footsteps echoed outside. Esau was returning. The tent flap burst open. Esau entered, carrying the fresh scent of the wild and the triumph of the hunt. In his hands, the meal his father had asked for, the meal that was now meaningless. "Father, rise and eat of your son's game," he said, pride in his voice. "Then bless me." Isaac froze. His eyes widened as if lightning had struck his heart. Who are you?" "I am Esau, your firstborn." The old man trembled violently. His voice cracked like dry wood. "Then who was it," he whispered, "that brought me food before you came? I ate and blessed him, and indeed, he will be blessed." The words fell like a sword into Esau's chest. He let out a cry so fierce it shook the tent, a sound of betrayal, of rage, of heartbreak. "My father, bless me too," he pleaded. "Bless me." But Isaac could not. "How your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau's fists clenched, his eyes burning red with fury. Is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has supplanted me twice, first my birthright, and now my blessing." From that moment, Esau's love for his brother turned to venom. "When father dies," he whispered to himself, "I will kill Jacob." Rebekah heard those words. In the quiet of night, she ran to Jacob's tent, tears streaking her face. "Your brother plots to kill you. Go, my son, flee to my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him until Esau's anger cools." And so, before dawn, Jacob gathered what little he could carry. He turned his eyes toward the eastern horizon, a land unknown, a future uncertain. The desert wind howled as he walked away from everything he knew, his home, his mother's voice, his father's blessing echoing in his heart. But heaven was watching. For though Jacob fled from man, he was running straight into the arms of God's purpose. Night fell upon the wilderness like a great and heavy silence. Jacob wandered alone, weary and frightened, with only the stars as his witnesses. The desert stretched endlessly before him, a cold sea of dust and shadows. When his strength failed, he gathered a stone for a pillow and lay his head upon it. The earth beneath him was hard, but sleep, merciful and deep, claimed him at last. And then, the veil between worlds lifted. In his dream, Jacob saw a ladder rising from the very ground where he lay, stretching all the way into the heavens. Upon it, angels of God were ascending and descending, radiant, countless, their wings shimmering like living fire. The air itself sang with glory. Above the ladder stood the Lord, wrapped in light brighter than the sun. His voice rolled like distant thunder, yet spoke with the warmth of eternity. "I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham and of Isaac. The land where you lie, I will give it to you and to your descendants. Your offspring will be like the dust of the earth, spreading to the west and east, north and south. And through you and your seed, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. I am with you, I will guard you wherever you go, and bring you back to this land. I will never leave you until I have done what I have promised." The heavens blazed, then dimmed. The dream faded. The desert returned. Jacob awoke with trembling hands, his heart pounding in awe. "Surely," he whispered, "the Lord is in this place." And I did not know it. He rose before dawn and set up the stone he had used as a pillow, pouring oil upon it, and he named that place Bethel, the house of God. Then he made a vow. "If God will be with me and provide for me on this journey, then the Lord shall be my God, and this stone will be his house." As the morning light spilled across the horizon, Jacob continued his path toward Haran, no longer just a fugitive, but a man marked by heaven. The sun burned high above the plains of Haran as Jacob approached the land of his mother's kin. Dust clung to his sandals, and thirst cracked his lips, but his eyes were bright with purpose. In the distance, he saw a well, surrounded by flocks of sheep and shepherds resting in its shade. The great stone that covered its mouth gleamed under the sun. "Brothers," Jacob called, "where are you from?" "From Haran," they replied. His heart leapt. "Do you know Laban, the son of Nahor?" They nodded. "We know him, and look, his daughter Rachel is coming with the sheep." Jacob turned, and time seemed to slow. Across the golden fields came Rachel, her veil fluttering in the wind, her steps graceful as morning light. The sun caught her eyes, and Jacob felt his heart thunder like the sky before rain. Without hesitation, he strode to the well. Strength surged through him, the strength of destiny. He rolled the massive stone away by himself and watered her flock. Rachel watched in awe as this stranger, weary and dusty, performed a feat even several men struggled to do. Then Jacob approached her, his voice soft yet filled with emotion. "I am Jacob, son of Rebekah. Your father's sister is my mother." Tears welled in Rachel's eyes. She ran to tell her father, Laban, and soon Jacob was welcomed into their home, though none could yet see the storm of fate that would unfold within those walls. Days turned into weeks, and Jacob's heart grew bound to Rachel's. Her laughter was his light, her presence his rest. He offered Laban a pledge, "I will serve you 7 years for your daughter Rachel." And Laban, cunning as time itself, smiled. "It shall be so." So Jacob labored, day and night, through heat and frost, his hands rough, his heart steadfast. And though 7 years passed, the Bible says, They seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her. 7 long years passed like a dream. The fields of Haran glowed with harvest, the air thick with anticipation, for at last the day had come. Jacob's heart beat only for Rachel, the woman he had loved and labored for. The camp buzzed with music, laughter, and the glow of torches. Laban, ever smiling, led the feast. As the sun sank and the stars rose, a veiled bride was brought to Jacob's tent. The wine flowed, the songs echoed, and the night fell heavy with celebration. And so Jacob, weary but filled with joy, welcomed his bride into his arms. But when dawn broke, the light revealed another face. Leah. Jacob staggered back, disbelief twisting into fury. "What have you done to me?" he shouted, storming into Laban's tent. "Was it not for Rachel that I served you? Why have you deceived me?" Laban's calm reply cut like a blade. "It is not our custom to give the younger before the firstborn. Finish this week with Leah, and then you may also have Rachel, for another 7 years of service." Jacob's heart ached, torn between rage and devotion. Yet when he looked upon Rachel, his resolve returned. He agreed. And so, after 7 more years, 14 in total, Jacob finally took Rachel as his wife. But from that day, his household became a place of rivalry, of love divided, of silent tears shed beneath the same roof. Leah bore him sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, while Rachel wept in barrenness, her heart longing for the child she could not have. Through the pain, Jacob worked and prospered. God's hand was upon him, blessing the flocks of his herds, multiplying his strength. But in his soul the memory of deceit lingered. The one who had tricked his brother now knew the bitterness of being tricked himself. Yet even in this, destiny whispered. For Jacob was being shaped not just into a man of wealth, but into a man of purpose. Many seasons had passed since Jacob first arrived in Haran. His flocks covered the hills like waves of white wool. His tents were filled with servants, children, and laughter. Yet beneath all the abundance, unease began to grow, envy. Laban's sons whispered among themselves, their eyes dark with resentment. "Jacob has taken everything that was our father's," they said. "He has built his wealth from what belonged to us." Laban, too, grew cold. The warmth in his smile vanished, replaced by suspicion. Then, one quiet dawn, as Jacob watched the sunrise touch the hills, a familiar voice echoed within his heart, the same voice that had spoken years ago beside the ladder of heaven. "Return to the land of your fathers and to your family, and I will be with you." Jacob turned toward his wives, Leah and Rachel, and spoke in hushed tones. "Your father's attitude toward me has changed, but the God of my fathers has been with me. You know how I served him faithfully, and how he has deceived me again and again. Yet the Lord has not allowed him to harm me." Then he told them of a dream, how in the night the angel of God had appeared to him, saying, "Lift up your eyes and see. All the rams that mate with the flock are speckled, spotted, and gray, for I have seen all that Laban has done to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed the pillar and made your vow. Now arise, leave this land, and return to your homeland." Rachel and Leah looked at one another and nodded. "Do whatever God has said to you." And so, without warning, Jacob fled. He gathered his children, his wives, and his herds, crossing the wilderness in secret, while Laban was away shearing his sheep. The wind howled as their caravan moved under the stars, the same stars that had watched Jacob flee years before. But now he was no longer the same man. He carried not fear but faith. He was going home. 3 days passed before Laban learned that Jacob had fled. His rage erupted like a storm. He gathered his kinsmen, mounted his camels, and thundered into the wilderness in pursuit, determined to reclaim his daughters, his flocks, and his pride. For 7 days he chased Jacob across the dry plains, the dust rising like smoke behind him. And as the 7th night fell, just before dawn, heaven intervened. In the stillness of his sleep, God appeared to Laban in a dream, his voice carrying the power of eternity. "Be careful not to speak to Jacob, either good or bad." Laban awoke, drenched in sweat, trembling. The fire of his anger dimmed, replaced by a fearful awe. He knew he had been warned by the Almighty himself. When morning came, his caravan finally overtook Jacob's camp in the hills of Gilead. The wind was tense, the air charged like the moment before lightning strikes. Laban dismounted and faced Jacob. "What have you done?" he demanded. "You deceived me and carried away my daughters like captives of war. Why did you flee secretly and not tell me, that I might send you away with songs and music? And why did you steal my household gods?" Jacob's jaw tightened. "I left because I was afraid you would take your daughters from me by force. As for your gods, with whomever you find them, that person shall not live." He did not know that Rachel, out of fear, had hidden them beneath her saddle. Laban searched through the tents, through every basket and chest, but he found nothing. Then Jacob's patience broke. "For 20 years I have served you," he shouted. "Your sheep miscarried none, I stole nothing from you. In the day the heat consumed me, and in the night the frost. You changed my wages 10 times. But God saw my affliction and rebuked you last night." Silence fell. Laban's pride withered before the weight of truth and the fear of heaven, so he offered peace. "Come now," he said, "let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it stand as a witness between us." They gathered stones into a great heap, and Laban declared, "This heap is a witness that I will not pass over to you, and you will not pass over to me for harm." And there, beneath the vast stars of Gilead, the deceiver and the deceived made peace. When morning came, Laban kissed his daughters, blessed his grandchildren, and turned back toward Haran. And Jacob, for the first time in decades, set his face toward home. The hills of Canaan rose in the distance, and the air carried the scent of home. But for Jacob, every step forward tightened the knot of fear in his chest. For beyond those hills lived Esau, the brother he had deceived, the brother who had once sworn to kill him. As the caravan moved, Jacob sent messengers ahead to Esau in the land of Seir. "Tell my lord Esau," he instructed, "your servant Jacob says, I have stayed with Laban until now, and I have oxen, donkeys, flocks, and servants. I send this message to find favor in your eyes." The messengers returned, pale and breathless. "We met your brother Esau, and he is coming to meet you with 400 men. Jacob's blood ran cold. His heart pounded with the echo of his past sins. He divided his people, his flocks and his herds, into 2 groups, saying, "If Esau attacks one, the other may escape." That night, under a canopy of stars, Jacob fell to his knees and prayed, not as the trickster he once was, but as a man desperate for mercy. "O God of my father Abraham and Isaac, you who said to me, 'Return to your country, and I will do you good,' I am unworthy of all your kindness. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, for I fear him that he may come and strike us all." Then Jacob rose and prepared an offering, hundreds of goats, sheep, camels, and oxen, gifts for Esau, sent ahead in waves to soften his brother's heart. With every herd that went before him, he repeated to his servants, "When you meet Esau, say, 'These belong to your servant Jacob. They are a gift for my lord Esau, and behold, he is behind us.'" When the last of the gifts disappeared into the distance, Jacob found himself alone by the ford of the river Jabbok. The wind was still, the night silent, and there, between the shadows of fear and the dawn of destiny, a mysterious man appeared. Without a word, the stranger lunged. Jacob fought back. The two wrestled through the night, their struggle fierce and unrelenting, man against man, will against destiny, flesh against faith. The river Jabbok whispered beneath the stars as Jacob struggled with the stranger. The night air was sharp, their breaths mingling in clouds of mist. Hands clutched, bodies twisted, strength tested, man and divine presence locked in a battle beyond comprehension. Hours passed, though the moon barely moved. Jacob refused to release the stranger, even as pain surged through his shoulders. "Let me go," the stranger said at last, "for dawn is breaking." Jacob's voice was hoarse but determined. "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Silence fell. Then the stranger touched Jacob's hip, sending a sharp pain through his body. Yet Jacob would not yield. "Your name shall no longer be Jacob," the stranger said as he released him, "but Israel, for you have struggled with God and with men and have prevailed." Jacob looked down at his limp hip and then up at the stranger, awe filling his heart. "I have seen you face to face," he whispered, "and yet my life has been spared." The stranger vanished with the first light of dawn, leaving Jacob alone with the ache of his injury and the weight of his new name. Jacob rose, leaning on his staff, his soul transformed. No longer just the cunning trickster, no longer merely the fleeing son, he was Israel, a man who had wrestled with God and survived, marked forever by the struggle and the blessing. He gazed across the river as the sun painted the hills in gold and crimson. Ahead lay Esau, and behind him, the life he had once known. Jacob breathed deeply. He knew that the confrontation was coming, but now he carried faith, humility, and courage in place of fear. The sun climbed higher over the hills of Canaan as Jacob's caravan drew near. In the distance, he saw Esau and 400 men advancing. Jacob's heart still beat fast, but this time it was tempered with courage, shaped by the night he wrestled with God. He divided his family again, sending them across the path in smaller groups, and moved forward himself, alone, humble, yet determined. Then he bowed 7 times to the ground before Esau, the ultimate gesture of respect and submission. Esau's eyes widened. For a moment he said nothing. Then, to Jacob's shock, he ran forward, embracing his brother. They wept together, tears mingling with dust and sweat. "I have enough, my brother," Esau said. "Why do you come with such gifts?" Jacob replied softly. "I have seen your face as one sees the face of God, and it is mercy that I am alive. Please, take what I have offered, for your servant has been afraid." Esau laughed, a deep, rolling sound that shook away decades of fear. "Keep it," he said. "I have all I need. Let us leave the past behind us." In that embrace, the wounds of years, of betrayal and fear, began to heal. The brothers who had once been enemies now stood as reconciled men, bound not by deceit or rivalry, but by the enduring thread of family and God's providence. As they parted ways that day, Esau went toward Seir with his men, and Jacob journeyed to Succoth, where he built houses and shelters for his growing household. He knew, as he looked over his family and flocks, that God had kept his promise. He was blessed, protected, and chosen to father nations. Jacob settled in the fertile land of Canaan, his flocks multiplying and his household thriving under God's blessing. Leah, Rachel, Bilhah, and Zilpah bore him sons, each one carrying the weight of destiny in their names. Reuben, the firstborn, strong yet tender. Simeon and Levi, fiery and determined. Judah, destined for leadership. Dan and Naphtali, born of handmaidens. Gad and Asher, children of struggle and perseverance. Issachar and Zebulun, sons of toil and reward. Finally, Joseph, the beloved son of Rachel, a boy whose coat of many colors shone with promise. And later, Benjamin, the youngest, whose birth came at great cost to Rachel. The household was filled with laughter, tension, love, and rivalry, a microcosm of the nation that would grow from Jacob's lineage. Yet God's hand continued to guide him. Even in moments of jealousy and conflict, his covenant remained unbroken. Jacob watched his sons with a mixture of pride and caution. He knew the seeds of future triumph and strife were sown here, in the hearts of these children. And as the sun set behind the hills, painting the sky in fire and gold, Jacob reflected, "From my struggles, God has brought life. From my failures, He has forged a people. My journey has not been easy, but it has been guided by His hand." The tents glowed in the evening light, the flocks grazed peacefully, and the promise of nations rested quietly within the hearts of the 12 sons. Among all Jacob's sons, there was one who shone brighter in his father's eyes, Joseph, the son of Rachel, born of love and hope. To honor him, Jacob gave Joseph a coat of many colors, a garment that symbolized not only affection, but also the weight of destiny. The other brothers saw it, and envy ignited in their hearts. Whispers filled the tents. Why does he receive such favor? Why do his dreams speak of ruling over us? Joseph, unaware of the growing tension, shared his dreams freely. "I dreamed that we were binding sheaves in the field, and my sheaf rose and stood upright," he said, "and your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." Another dream came. "The sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed to me." His brothers' faces darkened. Even his father's love could not quench their jealousy. As time passed, their envy festered. They plotted in secret, speaking of vengeance, of exile, of striking down the favored son. Joseph, still naive, continued to serve and to dream, unaware that the seeds of betrayal were already taking root. The stage was set. A journey of trials, of faith and of divine providence was about to begin, one that would test the family, reshape nations, and reveal God's plan in ways none could foresee. The sun scorched the hills as Joseph's brothers gathered in secret. Their jealousy had grown like a wildfire, fueled by his father's love and his dreams of dominion. "Here comes the dreamer," they hissed. "Let's see what becomes of him." They seized Joseph, tore his coat of many colors from his shoulders, and threw him into a pit, the darkness swallowing him whole. Days passed, and the pit became a tomb of despair. Then traders approached, passing on their way to Egypt. The brothers, seeking profit and a twisted relief, sold Joseph as a slave. The weight of silver in their hands sealed the betrayal. When Jacob received the torn, bloodied coat, his heart shattered. "A wild beast has devoured him," he wailed, mourning as though his beloved son was gone forever. But God, invisible yet ever-present, was at work. Joseph, though now a slave, was protected and guided in all things. Even in the hands of Potiphar, an Egyptian official, God blessed him, giving him favor, wisdom, and integrity that would shine even in chains. The darkness of betrayal could not hide the light of God's purpose. Every step Joseph took in this foreign land was carefully watched by heaven, for the boy who had been sold into slavery was destined to save nations from famine and forge the path for Israel's survival. And so, though the night seemed endless, a divine plan quietly unfolded, threading hope through despair. Years passed in Egypt, and Joseph's life was not easy. Though he served faithfully in Potiphar's house, temptation came, and false accusations hurled him into the dark confines of prison. Yet even there, God's presence was with him. Joseph interpreted dreams of fellow prisoners with wisdom beyond his years, accurately revealing the future. When Pharaoh himself was troubled by dreams of famine and abundance, Joseph was brought before him. Standing tall despite years of suffering, Joseph listened and spoke. "It is not in me but in God. He will give Pharaoh a favorable answer." He explained the dreams with clarity and courage. 7 years of plenty would be followed by 7 years of famine. Egypt must prepare by gathering grain to sustain the nation. Pharaoh saw the Spirit of God in Joseph and declared, "Can we find such a man as this, one in whom is the Spirit of God?" Joseph was appointed second in command over all Egypt, clothed in fine linen and gold, riding in Pharaoh's chariot. He commanded the land with wisdom, storing grain in preparation for the coming famine. What had begun as betrayal, chains, and exile had transformed into glory, authority, and providence. Joseph knew, even in his highest moments, that every trial had been guided by God's hand. And far away in Canaan, his brothers were soon to face the famine Joseph had predicted, setting the stage for a reunion that would test hearts and reveal divine mercy. The famine swept across Canaan like a shadow, leaving towns empty and flocks thin. Jacob's sons, unaware that the powerful Egyptian governor was their own brother, traveled to Egypt to buy grain. Joseph recognized them immediately, but his brothers did not recognize him. His heart stirred with a mix of grief, anger, and mercy. "Where do you come from?" Joseph asked, his voice calm but commanding. "From the land of Canaan," they replied, bowing before him. He examined them, searching for signs of repentance. He spoke sharply at first, testing their hearts. "You are spies. You have come to see the land's weakness." Fear gripped the brothers. They remembered the wrong they had done to him years before, and their guilt surfaced like a tidal wave. But Joseph was patient. He held back his power, observing their sincerity, and eventually revealed their hidden bond by demanding that Benjamin be brought to him. "Your youngest brother shall not be harmed," Joseph promised, "and you will see that God has a purpose in all that has happened." Finally, moved by their remorse, Joseph could no longer contain himself. He wept aloud, throwing his arms around his brothers. "I am Joseph," he said, "your brother whom you sold into Egypt. Do not be distressed nor angry with yourselves, for God sent me before you to preserve life." Tears, embraces, and astonishment filled the chamber. The brothers who had plotted murder now knelt before mercy itself. Through betrayal, hardship, and exile, God's plan had been fulfilled, turning evil into blessing, sorrow into salvation. Joseph provided generously for his father and brothers, giving them land in Goshen, a fertile region where their flocks could thrive. Jacob's eyes, once dimmed by grief, now shone with joy. He blessed Pharaoh and marveled at the wonders God had performed. "God has made me fruitful in this land of my affliction," Jacob said, "and has preserved my children and their children." The family settled, and generations began to grow. Joseph's wisdom ensured that even during the famine, they lacked nothing. God's promise, made to Abraham and Isaac, whispered to Jacob at Bethel, continued to unfold, now across the borders of nations. Though they were strangers in Egypt, they were under God's protection. Jacob taught his sons the ways of the Lord, ensuring that the covenant of promise would pass faithfully to the next generation. Even in a foreign land, hope and faith flourished, for God's hand guided every step, turning trials into triumphs and exile into destiny. Years passed, and Jacob grew old, his body frail, but his spirit steadfast. He called his sons to his side, each one standing before him, faces filled with respect, love, and anticipation. One by one, Jacob blessed his children, speaking not only of their futures, but of God's enduring covenant. "Reuben, you are my firstborn, strong and passionate, yet you shall not dominate. Simeon and Levi, your strength will scatter, but justice will prevail. Judah, your line shall lead nations, and kings shall come from you. Joseph, fruitful vine, your branches shall stretch across the earth." Jacob's words were prophetic, full of insight, courage, and divine guidance. Though he had faced deception, rivalry, exile, and sorrow, his life was now a tapestry of God's faithfulness, a testament to endurance, mercy, and purpose. Before his death, Jacob made Joseph swear that he would bury him with his fathers in Canaan, in the cave of Machpelah, the land promised to Abraham. "For I want to rest with my fathers, where God first called our family, and where his promises were made," he said. With this, Jacob closed his eyes for the last time, surrounded by the family he had loved, disciplined, and guided. Though his body slept, his legacy, the 12 tribes of Israel, would carry his name and his faith forward for generations to come. Jacob's sons mourned deeply for their father, weeping as they honored the man who had carried them through triumphs and trials. With reverence, they buried him in the cave of Machpelah, beside Abraham and Isaac, the fathers who had first walked with God and whose promises had shaped their destiny. Even in death, Jacob's story echoed across generations. His life had been a tapestry of struggle and perseverance. From the womb, a battle of brothers; from deceit and rivalry, lessons of humility; from exile and hardship, the forging of faith; from betrayal and suffering, the triumph of God's providence. His name, Israel, became a banner for his descendants, a people chosen, tested, and preserved by the hand of God. Through Joseph, through the 12 tribes, and through the promises of heaven, Jacob's legacy endured, a testimony that even in life's deepest struggles, God's plan unfolds. And as the sun set over Canaan, the land of promise, a quiet truth settled in the hearts of all who remembered him. A life guided by God, though fraught with trials, becomes a legacy that shapes nations and fulfills eternity. The story of Jacob was complete, but the journey of his children, and the fulfillment of God's covenant, had only just begun. The end.